Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Blue Ribbon Lounge podcast.
Yes, we're back in your ears so you can hear the things we have to say to make your day better with all these nuggets of knowledge you didn't know you wanted, but now that you got them, you can share them with your friends so they can begin their journey to the Blue Ribbon Lounge.
Hey, you heard it here, folks. Share it with your friends.
Yep.
That's what I took from that.
That's what you got?
Yeah, if I was good enough at music, I'd overdub some music on that. It'd turn into a rap.
Yeah.
Or one of those like spoken word rock songs or something.
Yeah.
I
ain't got time for that. Or I can't get behind that. That's what it is. Henry Rollins and James T. Kirk. What's his name?
Captain James T. Kirk?
Yeah. William Shatner.
Yeah?
Yeah, they have a spoken word kind of song.
No way. I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah, it's called I Can't Get Behind That. It's all like, prices go up, but the size goes down. I can't get behind that.
That's funny.
Yeah,
I'm going to check that out.
It's pretty good.
What did you just send me something recently?
Probably, yeah.
I can look it up on my phone. I remember I think it being pretty good.
Well, yeah, I'm not just going to send poop.
Poo-poo caca.
Nobody wants that.
Over the airwaves. Speaking of listening to things, this Johnny Burdette, Lonesome Train. That was a good tune.
Yeah, one of the first rockabilly guys.
Yeah.
Like right around, I think right before Elvis.
I think Elvis was making music right around there too.
Yeah. Well, I think because it was rock.
The video says 1956.
Yeah.
So if he was on TV in 56, I mean, he was probably a little bit bigger when Elvis was right around there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. They have one, not that song, but they have a song that you would recognize.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But
it's
like
okay.
Train goes a rolling all night long.
Oh, yeah, that's a good tune.
Yeah, they're the original ones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good covers of it too.
Yeah.
I shout out to the space time travelers out there, all you beautiful people, you.
Yes.
Hit us up with some stuff you're listening to. I have just hit a brick wall. If it's not podcast related, I'm finding a hard time listening to anything lately.
Find some music to listen to.
Music or podcasts or anything.
New pods.
Yeah, I tried to listen to Harlan Williams, and the first one I got onto was just him talking alone, and maybe a guest would have been better. But boy, it was brutal. He was talking about Matthew Perry, and I don't know exactly when the podcast came out. That's another weird thing about the internet. But he was talking about Matthew Perry, and it was only like the episode title was like, we're talking about Matthew Perry, and it was talked about it for like 15 minutes, and then it was all rambling stuff. It was hard.
Yeah, some podcasts do that. Like we do that.
Oh, we do that.
We'll
yes.
be like, here's the episode of, I don't know, botany, and then we'll ramble for 20 minutes about Tuggers in Port Byron, which is like a really good place that me and the old lady went to.
Okay.
Yeah, the food's decently priced, but it's like the chef is obviously on his game.
Yeah.
And it wasn't packed when we went there, but we usually, when we have date night, we kind of go at like geriatric hours.
Okay. There was a place my wife's been going to, Blue Suede down there. It's kind of like a lounge. She says it's pretty cool. Got some good music and stuff. I haven't been down there. I haven't really been out much.
Yeah. Was it like a bar?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they have food though.
Okay.
From what she has told me. Dave, I got to tell you this. Sorry to you listeners out there. It's going to be too late for you. But there's a board game convention in downtown Davenport. I'm looking to go to tomorrow, which is Saturday, which is the Saturday before the episode releases.
Yeah, so sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, but I wanted to let you know before I forget, and if I don't tell you now, I will.
Oh, okay.
In case you're interested.
Is it in the...
It's at the Scott Community College building down there.
So not the River Center?
No. I think it's going to be smaller than the River Center.
Oh, okay.
But it sounds like they got board games and D&D and some other stuff.
Huh.
Sounded pretty cool. I'll probably go down there.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Play some Scrabble.
Hopefully. It's been a long time since I played most any board game.
Yeah, no. Well, played D&D last weekend.
Tight. A little Avernus. What's the Descent into Avernus?
No, Princess of the Apocalypse.
Oh, that's the one. Yeah.
Still working on that one. It's been like 2 years, but I think
it's all right.
the next one should be the last.
Okay, that'd be tight.
We're getting close on there.
Closed up all the portals or whatever you got to do, and fighting the boss.
Yeah, there's one more.
Strahd.
Just
put Strahd as the boss in every
might
campaign.
as well, yeah.
But anyways, Vintage Torque Fest is coming up.
I saw flyers for that.
Where at?
At the internet, and I think it worked.
At the internet,
and I think somewhere hanging up on the pegboards at work.
Oh, okay, that's tight.
Or corkboard, I guess.
Dubuque County Fairgrounds in Dubuque, Iowa. Check it out. There's gonna be some good music there. I should start listening to that actually to kind of gear up.
Yeah, know what you're getting into.
Yeah, camping, hot rods, music. It'll be a good time.
Bonfire.
Yeah. Shout out to Leadfoot Lunatics if they still listen. They listened for a while, longer than I thought, and hopefully I'll see them there.
Well, maybe. I mean, we've been getting some good numbers lately.
Yeah, we're almost at like 10,000 views. I'm like, who are these people?
Who are these people?
It's all like Chinese and Indian people learning English.
Probably. Like we're the new Elvis.
Yeah.
Instead of listening to Elvis to learn your American, your English.
You listen to podcasts. Blue Ribbon Lounge podcast.
Yes. Because you get the more obscure ones, then you can drop the knowledge, and they'll be like, where'd you hear about that?
Pow, pow, pow. So actually, if any of you are listening, we have a good episode coming up. Hopefully we can, portray it well. There was a lot of information, but it reminded me a lot of the Murphy's Law episode.
Really? Okay. I don't know how to remind you of the Murphy's Law episode.
Well, the episode, Murphy's Law ended up kind of being more so around the one guy who was doing a bunch of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
This is about the guy doing the crazy stuff. So
yeah,
it's in a bit of different direction, but I can't remember the guy's name from Murphy's Law. But he was in the military doing experiments. And then our topic for today, Admiral Richard Byrd. Shout out to Colin. I believe he brought this up years ago. And I just put it on the list and kind of forgot about it.
Okay.
But it was super interesting. This guy did so much stuff. A little bit of controversy and a little bit of conspiracy.
Yeah.
But he did a lot. I mean, even if he didn't accomplish a lot of the things they say he didn't do, then he still did a lot.
Yeah. So Richard E. Byrd?
Richard Evelyn Byrd?
Sure.
I don't have my notes up. Yep, Richard Evelyn Byrd Jr.
Oh, yes, because his dad was a senior and was also like a rich guy.
Oh, okay. He was a politician.
Yeah, like a Speaker of the House for Virginia, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
And then Richard Byrd's brother, they called Richard Dick. Harry, his older brother, was also a politician. And his younger brother, Tom, Dick, and Harry, they call him.
Yeah. Maybe that's where it comes from.
That's what I was wondering. I don't know what his brother Tom did.
Probably something.
Yeah.
He was the one that he just coasted.
I would too. I didn't have a whole bunch on him growing up and stuff. I kind of flaked on that. That's my bad.
Well, he graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy in 1912, and then he was commissioned an ensign in the U.S. Navy, and then he learned to fly in the U.S. Naval Station Pensacola, which is in Florida. Which
naval airplanes were only around for like 30 years before he started to fly or something like that.
Yeah, he was like, they're very new. Yeah. Because this was right before World War I. So this was all the old propeller planes with the open cockpit kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. In Pensacola, that's also a fun fact. That's where the Blue Angels are out of.
Really?
Yeah. And where they train most of the military aviation people to learn how to use electronics.
Is that where you were?
Maybe.
Oh, okay. Maybe. Yeah, when he was flying planes, like we just said, the technology was super new. He actually invented the aerial sextant.
He, did he have protection?
The aerial sextant is a device that uses a bubble floating in liquid to measure the horizon despite weather conditions.
Oh, okay.
So, and I feel like I've seen that. I feel like I've seen them in cars for some reason.
No,
except it's flat on the ground.
The one in the car, that's just a compass.
Oh, okay.
This is more like an artificial horizon.
Oh, okay.
So if it's like cloudy or whatever, you can still know where the horizon's at.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and he also developed navigational methods and equipment for in-sea flying boats, one of which was made... One of these in-sea flying boats was one of the first boats to make the transatlantic airplane flight in 1919. Yeah. And he also assisted in dirigibles built for transatlantic crossing. But he was really known for his polar career.
Hell yeah.
Which started in...
bipolar.
Yeah, both polars, both poles. Which began in 1924 when he had command of a small naval aviation detachment with Commander D.B. McMillan. And it was an Arctic expedition to western Greenland, which that's when he learned how to start flying over sea ice and glaciers.
Which would be weird because, like, I hear of there's some sort of term for when you're at sea and, like, you kind of get lost because it all looks the same.
Yeah, you can get mixed up, especially if it's everything
flat,
white.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then after learning how to fly over sea ice and glaciers in Greenland, he got a wild hair up his butt to fly over the North Pole.
Yeah, Admiral Richard Byrd. Probably not an admiral at that time, huh?
No, I think he was still like an ensign.
Yeah, but Byrd and he was accompanied by Chief Aviation Pilot Floyd Bennett, and they were attempting to fly over the North Pole in a tri-motor monoplane named after Josephine Ford, who was the daughter of, at the time, Ford Motor Company president Edsel Ford, who helped finance the expedition.
Yes. And it also it was Bennett that was flying, and Byrd was just the navigational fellow. And they flew from Bergen, Norway, to the North Pole and back, and it took 15 and a half hours. And they had the only thing that was wrong is they had an oil leak.
Mm-hmm.
And then their navigational equipment was also kind of wonky.
Yeah.
Because of being close to the pole.
Yeah, you can't use compasses when you're...
Yeah, and so that was one of the first...
We got Pod Dog running around upstairs.
Yeah. But that's one of the controversial things to say that he was one of the first people to fly over the North Pole.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he went there and got back, and...
Well, he took the expedition.
Yeah.
And came back and wrote up paperwork about getting there.
Yeah, like he got debriefed.
Yep. And he actually ended up getting the Nobel Prize.
The Congressional Medal of Honor.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
From the president, Calvin Coolidge.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, after this, and even when he was still alive, this came out. A Norwegian American aviator and explorer, Bernett Balchen, cast a doubt on the claim due to like the speeds and times that he recorded weren't adding up, as well as this Balchen claimed that Bennett, the pilot, told Balchen that he had gotten pneumonia and had to turn back.
Yeah. Well, they said,
really? Dog? Or maybe Pod Kid?
Pod Kid. You know how they are. They can't walk silently.
Yeah, into that good night.
Yeah. No, but a diary of his was discovered in 1996, and they were trying to coordinate with what he'd written down with the actual pole, and they said he might have been like 150 miles away.
Yeah.
Because that oil leak and the guy getting sick, they turned around.
Yeah.
But with their equipment being kind of faulty, and the fact that magnetic north and true north aren't the same spot, I could see how there's doubt thrown on it.
Because they were working with limited technology.
Yeah.
It's like going into the woods with just a stick and surviving, you know?
Yeah. And to be the first ones to do it. But, I mean, even if they weren't, I guess, like 3 days later, like a dirigible flew out that way with a bunch of people on it.
Huh.
So I think they were kind of being like, well, maybe we're the first ones.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that's one of those.
I'm going to start doing stuff second and just like casting a ton of doubt on the first guy to do it.
Yeah.
That seems like a good plan.
That's how it works.
Yeah, and so that was this. From what I had read, that was the only one to the North Pole.
Yes, that he took.
Yeah.
And that's the only real controversy that I've heard about him.
Yeah.
Well, other than being a Freemason.
Ooh, and having crazy stories in his diary.
Yeah, or like seeing how he like rubbed elbows with a lot of rich and influential people.
Henry Ford.
Yeah.
Or not Henry Ford,
but his like son.
The other one.
The other Ford. Yeah. And like
his dad being a politician, his brother
and
being
the presidents, and being Freemasons. And I guess there's a blurb in the Freemason, like on their website when it talks about famous Freemasons, and they have a whole thing on him, on how he set up one of the first Freemason lodges
in Antarctica.
Yeah. Like, I guess if you just want to be like, this Quonset hut is a Freemasons like temple. But he also, after his flight after the North Pole, he actually helped out Charles Lindbergh with navigational training before Lindbergh did his solo flight across the Atlantic. Yeah,
and from what I had heard, Lindbergh kind of cut it quits at that, but Richard Byrd kept doing all sorts of stuff. In 1928, he took his first expedition to Antarctica.
Yeah.
It involved 2 ships and 3 planes. The flagship being the Norwegian sealing ship, previously named Samson. They renamed it to City of New York. And they designed this huge Arctic snow cruiser to take there. It was like 200 feet long and like 100 feet wide and tall.
Yeah, because it had like bunks and a kitchen
and like a science area.
Yeah, and storage.
Mm-hmm. It was actually built in Chicago in like 11 weeks.
Ooh.
And it was like a huge propaganda piece. So like as they built it in Chicago and then they drove it to Boston to board these ships.
Yeah, like doing parades and things like that.
Yep, they'd stop at places along the way, and it was so big it took up like 2 or 3 lanes.
Yeah.
So they had to close down highways and stuff.
Right. Just to get some groundswell behind the expedition, or some.
Yep.
What do you call that? Some grassroots.
Yeah. It cost over $100,000 to build, which is like more than $3 million in today's dollars. And when they got it to the ship, it had to actually be disassembled, and they were originally not going to put it on there because they thought it would throw the boat off. But Byrd was like, no, we need this thing.
Right.
And then when they get it to Antarctica, they're trying to unload it off this ship onto these icebergs or whatever.
Yeah.
And they build this big wooden ramp, and as they're driving it across, it's so heavy it starts breaking the ramp.
Kind of slips off a little bit.
Yeah, and I believe there's video footage of it.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Oh, okay. And Byrd is riding on top of it, and like as it slips, he like stumbles around.
Yeah. And with that, of course they've never had all-terrain vehicles for that kind of snow and ice and crevasses. So they have these huge Goodyear tires, and they think, hey, you know what? let's make them perfectly smooth.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and from what I had heard, it was so they were building this thing in such a limited time span, so they didn't have time to engineer and manufacture molds to build the tires.
okay.
So they went to Goodyear, and Goodyear was like, "Hey, we got these tires that'll fit it." They were originally for like an oil buggy that was going to be used. That was being promoted to be used in like Florida and like land and swamp areas.
Okay.
So yeah, it had these bald, big balloon tires.
Yeah.
And they were like, the original drawings that I saw of this thing, it was originally supposed to have treads. Like treaded tires.
Okay.
But they didn't have the time, and so they used these tires, and they kind of were like, well, the snow won't stick to it, and they're so big.
Yeah, they shouldn't get bogged down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they thought, like, with it being like a balloon tire, it would kind of roll across the snow,
Yeah.
as opposed to, like
You dig
digging
into
in.
it.
But then when they got it off onto the snow and ice, it just immediately sank.
Yeah.
Because it was built in the design with like the design of a train car.
Yes.
So it was very thick and heavy. And they used a bunch of diesel electric engines.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a new technology at the time. And with them, designing it and pumping it out in 11 weeks, they never had any time to road test it other than driving it all the way to Boston.
Yeah.
And you're on the highway. You're not like
Going over stuff.
snow.
Off-roading.
Yeah. So it was like really set up to fail, I feel like.
Right. But they managed to get some chains on the tires and get some kind of traction. But because of how heavy it was and like how it was geared, they could only really drive it in reverse because going forward they would just spin out.
Yeah, and it took them like forever to drive to this base in the Arctic, which called Little America.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of them throughout the story.
Right.
I didn't get kind of the positions of everything.
Yeah, because it wasn't like the first time they'd been to Antarctica. I think it was actually like not on his first trip there, but after, because he went up there and flew around first with just like a smaller crew.
And one other interesting fact I heard about this Arctic snow cruiser, a lot of people were talking about like, why didn't it have treads? And treaded technology, like tank treads or snowmobile treads, treaded technology was around. But this was in the late 1920s.
Yeah.
And really when tread technology was taking off was during World War II, that arms race.
When the tanks really became prevalent.
Yeah, yeah. So I thought that was kind of an interesting factoid. Another time that Byrd ended up going down to Antarctica was in 1933. I believe this was his second time there. But like I said, this guy was doing so much stuff. It was hard to.
His second expedition. Okay.
But so he went down to Little America, and he ended up going to this little shack, several miles away from Little America, closer to the South Pole.
Yeah, because he was going to try to map and claim the land around the South Pole,
as well as I believe weather research for future attempts. This guy was already like, I'm going to be back here in another 10 years, so I got to get a bunch of research.
Yeah.
And he was like really sold on South America or South Pole,
Antarctica,
South Pole being like the next big resource.
Yeah. But yeah, he was doing weather research at a weather station, and he got stuck in there for 5 months by himself because of a huge snowstorm, and he pretty much got buried under the snow.
Yeah. And while he was surviving under there, I guess he was just like reading books and listening to records, and he had a big like diesel generator keeping him warm.
But he still had to endure negative 58 to negative 76 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures. And sometimes even lower, like at night.
Damn. And then one thing about that one was there was some sort of issue with his heating duct system.
Yeah.
And the small shack that he was staying with, probably after it got covered with snow, I would bet.
Yeah.
It covered up some of the
Like
vents
the
or something.
Stovepipe or something.
Yeah. But he ended up getting carbon monoxide poisoning hella bad.
Yeah.
He radioed for his crew to come get him, and they did end up making it to him on the third attempt after several months. And he was like struggling to survive from this poisoning, and like he had to stay warm, so he had to keep the generator on so he wouldn't freeze to death, and then the generator's making him sicker and sicker.
Yeah, so you'd have to like switch between it because he ended up getting frostbite and shit too.
Damn. And I heard he was in World War II as well.
Yeah.
I only heard a very snippet of that.
Well, he served on the staff of the Chief of Naval Operations.
Okay.
And amongst other duties, he evaluated the Pacific Islands for operational sites, like, you know, where to put bases, because obviously he's really good at scouting out land masses.
Oh, yeah.
Setting up bases.
He's super good at scouting out land.
Yeah. And that was pretty much it. He was, because I don't know how old he was by then, but he was just more of a tactical, or like a, what do you call that? Like a supporting character in the war. He wasn't out there like fighting and flying planes.
Yeah, though I did hear that he was like around when after they dropped the bombs for the surrender of Japan, is what I had heard. So the guy kind of gets around, and he's in these high places.
Yeah, he's got his fingers in a lot of cookie jars.
Yeah.
And then after World War II, he was placed in charge of the U.S. Navy's Operation High Jump.
Yes, and that's what I got mostly sucked into.
Yeah, because this was his fourth expedition to the Antarctic, and it was the largest and most ambitious exploration of the continent as for the time.
Yeah, and they actually had I had seen a documentary done, and it was very cheesy, very 40s, 50s style.
1955.
Yeah.
And
that's on YouTube. Well, I'll try to remember to post that to the
it's called like Lost Lands or something like that. But yeah, this expedition involved 4,700 men, 13 ships, included an aircraft carrier, 25 airplanes, what's it say?
Several helicopters.
So yeah, a bunch of equipment for like ship to ship and land to ship and base to base.
Yeah, they had like little tractors and like bobcats and stuff.
Yeah, and a bunch of sled dogs and everything.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. And so the idea behind this, so after orders to were made to go do this, it took about 3 months to plan the 12,000-mile mission, and there was going to be 3 groups that go down there, one to the central Antarctica, and then one to the east and one to the west. The central Antarctica was going to map generally just the land on the inside, and then the other 2 were going to map the coastline.
Yeah. And the objectives, according to the U.S. Navy report, was A, training personnel and testing equipment in frigid conditions, consolidating and extending the United States sovereignty over the largest practical areas of the Antarctic, determining the feasibility of establishing, maintaining, and utilizing bases in Antarctica, and investigating possible base sites, developing techniques for establishing, maintaining, and utilizing air bases on ice, with particular attention to the later application of such techniques to operate in interior Greenland. So, because like Greenland is similar to the Antarctic, and after World War II, they're pretty much like, first we want to explore Antarctica, and we need to train our troops in like cold weather, like Siberia type weather.
Oh,
because the Cold War is starting to kick off, but you can't do it right next door to the Soviet Union. So go to the bottom of the earth and do all these tactical training things.
Yeah, and there were also some other missions included, like a small group during traveling down there. A small group set out to conduct a capture program, and they captured several seals and penguins for the Federal Fish and Wildlife Commission to study. There was a group that tested Arctic diving gear, like your first wetsuits and things like that.
Okay.
And man, it looked like they were just wetsuits. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah.
They didn't look like
those
astronaut.
Yeah, like those scuba tanks with the big metal helmet. No, they were like pretty simple.
Okay, I thought they would be more like a spacesuit.
Yeah. There was a group set to probe deep into the Arctic mountains to search for minerals, petrified vegetation, and also collect weather data. And then a group was sent to Mount Aramus, the only active volcano known to be near the South Pole. So, yeah, they were hitting all the bases while down there, and they had, almost 5,000 troops to be able to do that. So,
yeah, they had a ton of people and a ton of stuff, but it seemed like because they were going to go down there for 8 months. But then, because they went down there in December, which is
the coldest time. But they probably were going down there in the cold time to have the warm time to do work, I would suppose.
The cold time in the northern hemisphere.
Oh, I didn't consider that.
So it's the warm time in the southern hemisphere. That's their summer.
Oh.
But they were only there for 2 months because then the winter came early, and they ran into a bunch of storms and lost a couple of aircraft here and there.
Yeah, on their way down there, there's a huge storm that like dented up one of the planes, and another plane I heard fell overboard.
Yeah, just slid off board.
And then as they get more south, they're having to cut through ice.
Yeah.
And that was one of the boats that they took with was it was a Coast Guard icebreaker ship.
Yeah.
They called North Wind. And so when they're getting into this thick ice, it's cutting the ice going forward, and then all these other boats have to like follow right behind it.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine being in a huge boat trying to like I can hardly stay in the lane when I'm driving my car. You know what I mean?
So you have to steer between icebergs and stuff.
And during that, the Senate, which was the submarine that they took on the trip, actually got stuck in the ice because it was the rearest of this line, and so by the time the icebreaker is cut through, the ice is starting to form back up,
creep back on them.
And they got trapped so bad that they couldn't move forward, and the icebreaker had to like turn around to
come back for them.
To break them free. The icebreaker broke them free and was towing them back to open water, and they were just going to leave the submarine.
Yeah.
As it's towing the submarine back to open water, the other ships are in the ice,
starting to freeze up.
Yeah, and in this documentary, there's like video of water just like pouring into these ships.
Yeah,
and it's terrifying looking. I don't know if that's kind of normal or what.
Well, I mean, I don't know, but yeah, that's crazy. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, there's a whole chapter of them getting stuck in the Antarctic ice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it makes it really sound very claustrophobic.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
So the icebreaker is towing the submarine out, and then it's got to turn around, and it doesn't make quick turns,
No.
It takes like a mile to turn this thing around.
It's like turning a train.
Yeah, and these other ships are getting stuck back in ice, and the way that the ship is coming back, the icebreaker, they run into like 20-foot high glacier wall.
Yeah,
and so it's 20 foot high above water, and it's like 50 foot high below water. They do end up making it, but as they're waiting for the icebreaker, one of the colonels sends out Dr. Sipple, an Army ice veteran, and he goes onto the floating ice to determine if it was safe enough for like to unload 1,000 men, or
Okay.
and he comes back and he's like, yeah, that ice isn't safe.
Yeah.
So they're like on a ship taking in water, and they're surrounded by ice that probably looks to everybody. I bet there's guys on the ship that like kind of aren't in the know.
Yeah.
They're just like scrubbing toilets and shit like
Right.
that. And they're like, they're fucking ice. We'll just go walk out there.
Yeah.
And it would, in the video, it's fine because 3 guys go out there.
Yeah.
But once you get 1,000 people weighing
Right.
200 pounds each, then it may not hold.
Right. That just reminds me, shout out to our third man factor.
Oh yeah.
We talked about that one Arctic expedition where they got lost and they were actually on open ice.
Yeah.
With just dog sleds, like trying to get to like open sea so they could get on their boat and try to make it to an island where these whalers are.
Mm-hmm.
That it's like gives me the heebie-jeebies. Like even if like I know it's been below 0 for like a week and I'm walking on like a pond, I'm still like, this could break. But if you're in the middle of the ocean, like,
Yeah.
that's a little more serious if stuff starts cracking apart.
Yeah, like you were just talking about 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea, whether you're in, a soup can underwater trapped in ice,
Yeah.
or like standing on top of it in open air, like those are 2 very different freaky situations.
Yeah, because I think in that third man factor, of course, it was a wooden ship back then, and the ice actually started breaking it apart. That's
Yeah.
why they had to abandon ship.
Yeah. But the icebreaker did making it to these other ships and busting them loose, and they got through that icy portion into, I think it was called like the Sea of Whales or the Whales Sea.
Yeah, the Sea of Whales.
And that's where they started to unload that portion of the
The operation. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was like pretty much non-eventful from there. I mean, they did have to turn on and go home early, but then after that, Byrd was actually made like head of the United States Antarctic programs. Like he was just officer in charge of.
Is that after this?
After Operation High Jump.
Oh well, dude, what are you talking about? It wasn't exciting. There was this. As the Eastern group got to Peter Island, the helicopter they used to scout out the islands, it went out to find a path to get through the ice.
Yeah.
And as it's coming back, like there's video of the helicopter crashing into the water.
Yeah, they almost made it. They're like feet from where their landing pad.
Yeah, and they were saying like within less than 10 minutes you can die in water that cold, but they got a lifeboat down and picked him up and got him back in.
They were able to get the 2 guys, but the helicopter obviously was a loss.
Yeah, and then the group that went to Mount Aramus was led by Captain Defuct. Defuct? So they went out there and did their mission, and as they're coming back, they're having to be pulleyed into the boat, and these boats are rocking like the edge of the boat is rocking like 15 feet away and then 15 feet in, and they have to time it just right, because if they don't, you'll pull a guy right in as the boat is swinging out, and then just knock him,
smash into
him, and probably kill him.
Yeah,
because it was rocking, within just minutes.
Yeah, because they also had these like sea to land boats, like big propeller, like a pontoon.
Yeah,
not boats, but planes.
The pontoon planes.
Yeah, like Baloo and Tailspin.
Yeah.
And they were actually lowering those while they're rocking. And the first time they tried to do it, one of the ships that were helping guide it smashed into one of the pontoons. And they just had to pull it back up and fix it before they tried again. But they were able to get at least 2 of those planes in the water so they could take off from the water to go explore.
Yeah. And so as these military guys are coming back from this expedition, Captain Defuct, I'm probably saying that wrong. It sounds wrong, but maybe it's Dufect.
How do you spell it?
Dufect. But I typed it out the way I thought it. Dufect. Okay. We're gonna go with Dufect.
Dufect.
But he's getting pulled in last, and the cord that they're using, it was between two ships or something, and they both rocked at the right time, and the rope just goes razor taut, and then breaks, and he goes falling 50 feet into the water. And again, they toss down a boat with a bunch of guys, and they go out and they save his life again.
Yeah. You just got to remember, cross your ankles and you do your arms across your chest.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you're in a coffin.
So you don't belly flop
and
die.
Or have a leg flail sideways and get broken.
Oof. And then there was another interesting find that I saw they had on that same Eastern expedition. They found a large string of fresh hot water lakes.
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty interesting because the land around there was barren. Yeah. No snow because it was hot.
But also, it's a bit of a misconception because Antarctica doesn't get a lot of snow. It's just it doesn't heat up enough to melt it.
Oh.
But there are some spots that do get enough radiant heat from the sun that it'll melt what little snow there is. So there's green and dirt patches in Antarctica. Yeah.
Maybe I've seen that looking at seals and stuff.
Yeah, they're just hanging out on the dirt.
And then there was another point where a plane had gone missing, and 9 men on the George the First plane had been missing for 13 days, and the weather got so bad they couldn't send anybody out to go look for them.
Yeah.
Eventually, on the 13th day, they sent a plane out to go scout to see if they could find them, and they saw a crashed plane.
Yeah.
But there was a fire signal. And also written on the side of the plane was the words Lopez, Henderson, Williams, dead. And a few men were kind of, waving their arms and stuff.
Milling about.
And I thought it was super cool because the pilot wrote a letter that was we'll land at Barrier's Edge, 10 miles north. We'll drop flags to mark trail. If you can walk it, form a circle. If you can't, form a line. And then he must have tied it to a brick or something. And
he just flew real low and dropped it out.
Yeah, and he slowly circled around after they had time to read it and stuff, and they formed a circle, so they were good to walk.
Yeah.
And then they're just dumping over all this rescue gear.
Yeah, and they also beforehand, while they were on their way down, they got a bunch of bamboo sticks and tied yellow and orange flags to them to use for navigation. And so as this plane was also flying, they would dump gear and then dump these flags so they could see where to go and how to get to where they're going.
Yeah, that was going kind of far back in the episode now, but I thought that was pretty interesting how they were doing that on the ocean. It'd be interesting to see what kind of things that they were just put all the equipment on there, and we got 4,000 guys to do it as we go.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty interesting as well.
Just doing, because you do a lot of busy work. They're not just sleeping while they're on their way down there.
Yeah, and so the main mission, they finally get to Admiral Richard Byrd in the center of Antarctica, pretty much. They using a bunch of cameras and radar equipment mounted to the planes. They flew 4 planes, or it may have been 5. Kind of out in a scattershot direction. Originally, the radar was used to find underground landmines during World War II, but in this use, they were used to search for minerals like coal and iron and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They said they found a ton of coal, so much coal that
a mountain range of it.
Yeah, if they mined it, then they'd be able to power the United States forever.
Yeah, well, he gave an interview, and he was saying there's a bunch of coal down there. If they were able to get it, the world would be set for a while.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
But they were also kind of looking for uranium.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't even consider that.
Yeah, because in the interview, the guy asked him about it, and he's like, well, there's all sorts of minerals. I'm not going to comment on the uranium, but there's a bunch of coal out, and he just kind of like
swept
kept
it under
moving.
the rug.
Yeah. And I think that was one of the big motivating factors was to get the natural resources from down there.
Yellow
and
cake.
Claim it for ourselves because we just kicked butt in World War II. So
yeah,
we're
riding that high.
Yeah, we're like, we can take whatever we want.
Still think that.
Yeah.
But as they go out for the last big plane mission, Admiral Byrd gets a little overzealous, and he's like, we got to make this one count, and kind of goes out maybe a little too far or too fast or something. But as as the pilot tells him that they're running out of fuel, he tells him to turn around, and then all of a sudden one of his engines goes out.
Yeah.
And then the pilot says that they're losing power in the only engine left, and they start going down, and there's big mountain ranges out there. And they're like supposedly below like the peaks of the mountains, so in a pretty dangerous spot.
Right.
And so they start chucking stuff overboard.
Yeah, Bird's like, let's get the, what do they call that? Ballasts or like buoyancy, but that's like water.
Yeah, I know the word you're thinking about
because they have them like on the side of hot air balloons.
Yeah,
maybe they're called ballasts, but they're getting rid of weight so they can get up in the air more.
Yeah, so they got rid of like everything that they could except for the films that they had taken.
Yeah, all the pictures and scientific stuff.
Yeah,
everything else they were just kicking out of the way.
Keep the data.
Yeah, and they were able to get some more lift and make it back, right?
Yep. Which I don't know if that was. I think that was the questionable trip for. In his diary.
Is that the one where they lost radio communication for like a couple hours?
Yeah, and in his diary, supposedly, he had found like a cave that he flew into.
Well, it said he flew over a mountain range, and then there was a green valley with like a river or a stream in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
And then his equipment was going wacky, so he was using the sun.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I was flying along this valley, he loses the sun. He can't see the sun anymore. And do you know this one?
Maybe not this part. You just keep going.
All right. And then like they're flying, and he's like, "Oh, there's an elephant." And he's like, "Wait, that's furry." So he makes a circle, and he gets his binoculars out, and he's like, "That's a woolly mammoth." Weird. This is crazy. And then the temperature, like any frost that was on the plane melts, and he takes his glove off and he feels the window and it's warm to the touch. He's like, what the hell? And I guess his instruments are like, oh, it's 76 degrees outside. He's like, this is weird. And then as he's like taking it all in, these two saucers come up next to him on each side of the wing, and like his engine starts dying, but he's still flying, and he can't control anything. His controls aren't working. And these two saucers get close enough where you can see on the side of them that there's swastikas.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And then a radio thing comes over, and it's like a kind of a
Germany accent?
Yeah, Swedish kind of dramatic accent.
Dramatic accent.
Yeah. It's like tells the colonel, like, oh, we have control of your vehicle. You're gonna land in about 7 minutes. Take it easy. Everything's okay.
And that's it.
Well, that's what they say.
Oh, I had heard one where he had written in his journal that he flew into a cave, and as he goes in there, he starts seeing like lush greenery. And then all of a sudden he sees like a city made of crystals.
Oh, yeah, he sees that coming up. Yeah, and that's when the UFOs come up.
Oh, okay.
And take control of his plane to land in the city.
Yeah, and supposedly they were talking to him, and he says that he goes and talks to the master.
Yeah, they take him. They want to take him to the master,
and
they're big, like blonde-haired, blue-eyed fellas.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And they are telling Byrd that they're disappointed in the human race for dropping the bombs, and
they're destroying their world.
Yeah.
And it's gonna start to affect our world, kind of thing.
Yeah, and supposedly this is where a lot of the UFO panic starts to happen, right around.
Well, right after World War II is when
a
lot of people, especially in South America, start seeing a lot of UFOs.
Yeah.
It's one of the flaps, as they call it.
Flaps?
Yeah, UFO sightings come in flaps.
Okay. But yeah, he eventually, makes it back on one engine or whatever, and then the whole expedition takes off.
Yeah, and he gets debriefed, and they take a bunch of his notebooks or diaries or logs, I guess they would be called, and then kind of tell him not to talk to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But he already gave some interviews.
Yeah.
And after that, he was like appointed to the whatever I just said.
Oh yeah, like the naval hierarchy.
Oh yeah, the officer in charge of the United States Antarctic programs, because they started doing a thing called Operation Deep Freeze, and they kept going back like 3-4 more times until he eventually gets too old to be in charge of it.
Yeah. And they still have bases in Antarctica.
Yeah, but they also pretty much the world signed a treaty that it's nobody can take anything from there. It's only scientific research, and no military bases can be put down there.
Fuck?
Well, they did the same thing for the moon.
Yeah, well, Russia's going to be drilling halfway through the earth to get there.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things that, because it was such a big military endeavor, this Operation High Jump, is they thought that the Nazis might be down there.
Yeah.
Because this was right after World War I. And that's one of the speculations, because in I want to say it was like in 1935, before the war, like Hitler knew, it was in 1938, right before the war, Hitler knew he was like getting ready to start a war.
Yeah.
So he sent a ship down there called like the Sutherland or Sumberland.
Mm-hmm.
And the conspiracy is, right before the war started, he sent a lot of little expeditions out to look for like interesting artifacts or like any kind of like power objects that the occult might be like, where's the spear that stabbed Jesus? Where's the Ark of the Covenant?
Yeah, the Ark of the Covenant. I was trying to think of that.
Yeah, where's the Holy Grail? Like, so they kind of sent people out to look for stuff, because they even like the United States and Russia even like sent people to like Nepal and stuff, kind of looking for Shangri-La. Yeah, because that was like a thing they were looking for.
Well, and a lot of that kind of sparked the like the remote viewing stuff, didn't it?
Yeah.
Shout out to our very first episode you can't find anywhere but like Podbean.
It might be on Spotify.
It might be on the website. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's on Spotify.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Podbean for sure.
That was a weird episode.
It was a good one though.
It was a lot of fun.
But yeah, so they think he sent that boat down to Antarctica to look for these
blonde-haired, blue-eyed men.
Yeah, but Byrd called them like Adians, but
Adians.
That's what they called themselves, were the Adians.
Huh.
But then the Germans called them Aryans.
Oh.
They thought they lived, and because they had a bunch of occult people supposedly went with them also.
Mm-hmm.
But the official reason is they were looking for like a base or a port, set up a port to go whaling, so they could, because Germany was importing like whale blubber and oil and all that.
It was a huge commodity then.
Yeah, so they were looking for like a place to set up for themselves, so when he starts the war, they can be more self-sufficient.
Yeah.
And so having that knowledge, and then thinking they might have a base down there, with all the woo stuff aside, they kind of sent like a bigger contingency, even though we'd been exploring Antarctica a couple of 2-3 times before that.
Yeah.
So that's one of the conspiracy theories that people hang on. Or that, and there's also like there was a leaked report in 1991 that said that some of the ships were attacked by flying saucers, and that's how we lost some of our ships, not because of they were blown overboard.
Oh.
Yeah, but these leaked documents were from Russia.
Oh.
So I'm like,
super sus.
I'm like, that seems like misinformation. And then
yeah, what if like Russia and China just started like really propaganding UFO stuff at us? Just really rile up the bees.
Well, they kind of do that, not with UFO stuff, but the word on the street is like our TikTok and our reels are just like, does this book look like a cake or is it a book? But like their TikTok is like, oh, look at this gymnast, how well they're doing, and hey, look, engineering facts and stuff like that.
I have heard
it's
of
just
that.
like brain numbing bullshit.
Yeah.
And also one of the things that leads to this weird like conspiracy around Operation High Jump is they would, on the way down there, they stopped in Chile to like refuel and everything, and on the way back they stopped there again. And Byrd gave an interview to one of their newspapers, and they were asking about the expedition and everything, and it was in Spanish or Portuguese. And so then when people got a hold of this and then translated it back into English, there was a mistake, because he said, there's dire warning that we need to watch out for attacks from like aircraft coming from the poles, or fast moving aircraft that can move between the poles. And actually what he said is like, no, we need to watch attacks coming over the poles, because Russia is right on the other side of the North Pole, and if you can fly over the pole, you got to look out for that attack. If you can just fly straight over the top there. But what the newspaper translation made it sound like it's from the pole, not over. Like they're coming from the poles, and they're like, they can go over each pole, they can get back and forth real quick. And he's like, no, you can get from Russia
through the hollow earth.
Yeah, you can get from Russia to the United States real quick if you just go over the top of the earth instead of around. But there is those 3 hours of missing time that he was out of communication, that last flight that he took. Yeah. But also, and then there's like all that information that we talked about. Supposedly he gave a diary that he withheld from the government to his son on his deathbed, and then his son turned it over, and it became a book called Admiral Byrd's Secret Journal or Diary.
Oh, really?
But that expert is actually from his expedition to the North Pole.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of the stuff, if you read his real notes, a lot of it's lifted word for word from there. And then the stuff that the master told him is actually like plagiarized from a movie called Lost Horizon in 1937.
What the fuck?
Yeah, where these explorers went to Tibet and met with the Dalai Lama, and a lot of the stuff the master told Byrd is exactly word for word what the Dalai Lama was telling the leads of this movie.
What the fuck?
Yeah, and
they didn't realize they'd have the internet to check source.
Yeah, because there was this guy, I didn't write his name down, but he was like one of those guru guys that started writing books about like the hollow earth and stuff like that, and he brought up a Byrd's name a couple times in his books. And then when Byrd's Secret Diary came out, the guy who wrote the foreword for that book was the guy who was writing the books about hollow earth before. Oh. So it's like, that's also really sus. Yeah.
And Byrd himself wrote a couple of books. You know, if we have any history buffs out there, his third book alone is about his time he spent getting carbon monoxide poisoning in that hut. That one sounds like a pretty good one to me. But he had two other ones before that.
One called Skyward, which talks about the 1928 to 30 expedition of Antarctica. And his flight across the North Pole, and then he's got one entitled "A Little America," which is his account of the Antarctic exploration.
Yeah. That's all I had.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I had. I mean,
and it's like that's all I wrote down and remembered.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot because there's a whole like sect that think it's Freemasons involved, and that actually there's no Antarctica because there's an ice shelf. There's a North Pole because there's an ice shelf, and then he actually flew over the ice shelf to a different land that's beyond the ice shelf.
Okay.
Not necessarily in the hollow earth, but beyond the ice shelf is where he went. And they have a lot of connections and like red string that they make from him to like a bunch of different Freemasons.
Okay.
And then there's also ones that say that Eisenhower and Hitler met with these aliens and try to barter with them. And I guess Eisenhower's like, bleh. And then they hooked up like, psh, whatever. And so they hooked up with the Germans, and that's why the German alien UFOs. And then that's why we're actually going down there was to get rid of that base and steal the UFOs from them.
So what you're saying is we beat the Germans and aliens in World War II.
Yes.
Excellent.
But we also
USA.
Yes. Yeah. So, because there's like a rabbit hole. There's a lot. And the only real conspiracy is that we probably just wanted to take over all those resources for ourselves before we started like getting into the Cold War and start bartering to not blow each other up, and decided like, okay, we'll leave all that resources. Nobody gets it. We can only do science down there.
I'm going to take my ball and leave.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it was probably for the uranium is why we went down there.
Yeah. Admiral Richard Byrd, everybody, give it up for one of the most decorated, at least at the time, military men.
Yeah, it's a good guy.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Thank you so much for listening. Hit us up with some whatever you're doing. So, I just need a few things to listen to or something. And any suggestions on topics we would love to have.
Hit us up on the Facebook page or
up and down.
Blue Ribbon Lounge at gmail.com. Or is it
Blue Ribbon Lounge Moline at gmail.com. Just go to the Facebook page. Everybody got Facebook.
Yeah.
Or leave a comment. We'll find it.
Yeah, somewhere on YouTube or whatever.
YouTube, Spotify. Probably the easiest places for us to find and read.
Yeah, or the Facebook page.
Yeah, or just message one of us. Message me directly, Matt Nicky.
Yeah.
You cannot message Dave. He won't allow it. But thanks for listening, everybody. Have a good one. And for Bird's sake, be good to yourselves.
Yes. And with summer coming up, remember the words of Andre the Giant. It's not my fault. I'm the biggest and the strongest. I don't even exercise.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Blue Ribbon Lounge Pie. Let's start that over.
All
I'm gonna turn myself.
I
feel like can I just overall turn it down a little bit?
All of it?
Check.
Checkity.
You do yours again.
Check.
Oh, beautiful.